Bhatia, Secretary, Department for Promotion and Industry and Internal Trade, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Ms. Sumita Dawra, Secretary, Ministry of Labour and Employment, Government of India. May I request you all to join me in welcoming our panelists for this session, who are already walking onto their seats. Please welcome them. Our chair for the session is Mr. Rakesh Bharti Mittal, Vice Chairman, Bharti Enterprises. I'd like to request Mr. Mittal to kindly give his opening remarks and take the session forward. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon. I think this session is extremely important. Indian manufacturing, growth story, and future readiness. Before I start, I must say we have a very distinguished panel. Each one is well known and an authority in themselves, so I will not get into formal introductions. As we see India heading towards a $5 trillion economy and beyond, becoming the third largest economy globally, my strong conviction and belief is without manufacturing, it is just not possible, and hence manufacturing assumes even more critical role in making India a very, very bona fide superpower on manufacturing and leading the industry. While we see global manufacturing has gone through a significant tectonic change, China plus one prompted companies to diversify, rethinking of supply chain. While it offered significant opportunities to India, I must say in the last couple of years, we have not been able to capture that. And all of us know, many companies who moved out or who went and set up alternate manufacturing and supply chains looked at Asia and many other Asian countries. While I believe that India should have taken a majority of that, and that is something which I'm sure the panelists will, in their own way, share their views on that. 1 billion working force by 2030, huge demographic dividend. The question is, are we ready to nurture and capture their potential and capabilities? And I think that is where industry and academia needs to come and work together. India is in a strategic geographic location, robust policies. That is something which we have a huge advantage. And I believe India is absolutely at the crossroad of unprecedented opportunities like never before. Policies like PLI have been instrumental in boosting investments. Many emerging sectors and very critical sectors have seen large investments coming in. Electronics manufacturing, for example, PLIs have yielded investment of 1 lakh crore, proving almost a resounding success. And more importantly, the electronic exports will move up from $20 billion to $61 billion in 2030. Semiconductors, I think that's, I must thank and compliment the Honorable Prime Minister for his leadership and vision on talking of developing Made in India phone, not just chip to device. Design-linked incentives of the Government of India, India's semiconductor mission, geopolitical alliances like the ICET have led to $1.5 trillion investments in semicon from various companies in India. Another sector, which I believe is a sunrise sector for India, is space and space technologies. I must say ISRO has done outstanding. Not only work on the technology front, but more importantly, how we can use those technology at very frugal and low cost and put the moon on, the rocket on moon, and we are now preparing for the first manned flight, which should happen, I think, during our lifetimes. Young entrepreneurs and ex-ISRO scientists, they have ventured into designing and manufacturing satellites, making satellite-based sensors. The potential to reach 44 billion from current 8 billion in 2033 is something which is doable. And I must share my own personal example. When we were launching the satellites for OneWeb and Russian-Ukraine war broke up, our rockets and satellites were taken down. We looked at ISRO, and in a very short span of time, they made sure that 2 launches with 36 satellites each went up. And therefore, I see, given the low cost, why would the world not come to India for launching their satellites into space, whether it's a LEO, MEO, or GEO space? And the last, I would talk about artificial intelligence. I think it is no more a buzzword. It's a reality which is staring in our face. It's a key disruptor, a very critical technology, and which can be tapped to manufacture on the advanced manufacturing front. And I also believe ported combination of emerging technology with 5G will transform manufacturing in India. As we speak, case studies are building up, more use cases on industrial adoption is happening, and that is something which will increase manufacturing efficiency for India. Clearly, I would say manufacturing economy needs to be complemented with equal efforts and investments towards education, research and development, and skill development. And this is where, when I talked about the demographic dividend, industry academia need to make sure that we have youth ready who are employable. Review the curriculum, more engagement on research and development. So I'm going to stop here and invite Mr. Salil Gupta, President Boeing India, to share his views. Opening remarks. Salil.
Good morning. And what a difference a decade makes. You know, for Boeing in India, as a global OEM, if you talk to somebody who was from our company or one of our peer companies who had walked into an Indian partner, supplier, about 10, 12 years ago, many of the representatives from the US who are coming and trying to recruit new suppliers would have walked out of that factory shaking their head, wondering, okay, how long is this going to take? Because remember, the journey to the future of manufacturing, as we now say, in other countries that undertook entry into the aerospace field, Japan, Turkey, is anywhere between 35 and 50 years. That's the length of the journey. When you talk about those countries, you're talking about journeys that go back to the 1960s, early 1970s. That was where we were 10 years ago. Today, the Indian supply chain in our industry is one of the best performing supply chains in the world in terms of on-time delivery, in terms of quality, and in terms of reliability. It is absolutely spectacular transformation in 10 years. And that's why, as you think about our own company's supply chain, we've gone from about 2,000 crores 10 years ago per year in sourcing from India to over 10,000 crores today. That is not, and many people will say, well, you know, you've sold a lot to India, so a lot of that is because of offset or industrial participation. People will say, well, that's because of labor arbitrage or cost. I can assure you that those days are behind us. It is because of capability, it is because of quality, and it is because of reliability. As we come through the pandemic and we come through the recovery from the pandemic to this new accelerated period of growth, we've realized that the resilience of supply chains has had to become a priority. And Indian supply chain has proven to be incredibly resilient over the last few years. Over the 10 years, India's gone in our industry, from simple assemblies to complex assemblies to large-scale aerostructures to working with complex composite materials to now moving into advanced manufacturing, full-scale determinate assembly, where a lot of the work is done upstream and you're able to snap together pieces in final assembly much more easily. I think there's one example that I can give. If you go to our joint venture factory in Hyderabad, on one line you will see the Apache helicopter body for, the Air Force has them, the Army is getting them. India makes those for the entire world in Hyderabad. And the body of that helicopter comes down the line, and it's a fairly manual process. And there are highly skilled, highly trained mechanics and technicians that are doing the drilling and filling and assembly of this very complex piece of equipment. Right next to it is the 737 tail fin. And there what you will see is robots doing 80% of the precision drilling on the tail fin of the 737, again, for a global customer base. Right next to each other, you see the promise and the future of Indian manufacturing. From the optimization of the old to the definition of the new. And I think, I invite anyone who wants to see that factory to come visit it, because it shows you what Indian industry is capable of. And so as we stand here at the precipice of transition politically, as we look at a new administration, same as a previous administration in the United States, as we look at what impact that's going to have around the world and how that's going to reverberate in terms of trade flows and all of that, I think we can be very confident in the future of Indian manufacturing for one simple reason, maybe two. Quality is forever. Capability is forever. No matter what the politics are or may be, India will be part of this future supply chain globally because of what it can achieve now and in the future. And that's been a tremendous journey. So I congratulate all of you who've been part of that with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Salil, for your insightful views. I will now turn to Dr. Rana Hassan, Director, Asian Development Bank. Just for everyone, keep an eye on the timer right in front of you. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you. I'm going to take up from where Salil just left off, that in the Indian manufacturing story is unfolding. It's going to happen. It's just a question of how long it's going to take. And on this, I'd like to draw upon the East Asian experience. At ADB, we come from a region where we work very closely with East and Southeast Asian countries in addition to South Asia and Central West Asia. So a few takeaways. Now, some of this is very standard, but still worth emphasizing. Number one, the importance of infrastructure and logistics. And we're seeing India making tremendous strides on this issue. The second thing is access to inputs, especially imported inputs. And I think this is where, when you're trying to get into these global supply chains, things change so fast. There are just so many components. I think having a regime which is very predictable for manufacturers is extremely important. And that's something that we have seen in East Asia. Yes, there's all sorts of industrial policy that takes place, but that core access to inputs is predictable, and tariff rates and rates of protection tend to be low. That's just one thing I think we need to pay attention to. And it's something actually for the entire South Asian region. The second thing is labor and land. We need these to be flexible. Now, when it comes to labor, we have labor reforms taking place. We're seeing a number of states introducing flexibility in how that works, and that's really a very positive sign. I think land is one of those issues where in our ecosystem we still have to get a handle on, and in particular we need scale. Now, I'm going to let me get to a second issue that's related to land. It's about the ecosystem. What we're seeing in India right now is a state like Tamil Nadu or Gujarat, absolute powerhouses. They've got the right ecosystem. They invite firms. They've got very solid investment promotion, investment facilitation agencies, and they're able to resolve issues. But Tamil Nadu, for example, it's going to be running out of land. And so we've got these other states, Madhya Pradesh, we've got Odisha, a number of other states which can play a really important role. There's land, there's the basics of the logistics there, there's the infrastructure. What they need is the ecosystem. And I think so here, just we don't actually have to learn from East Asia on this. We just have to learn from what's happening in our leading Indian states. Essentially what it requires is making that transition from, for example, industrial development corporations, which are, thinking about the engineering, thinking about how to develop industrial parks, to really thinking about cutting-edge investment promotion and facilitation, attracting businesses, helping businesses out. Final point that I'd like to make is, I think, the state level is not enough. We have to go local. And this is a favorite example of mine, that when China was becoming the manufacturing workshop of the World Bank's doing business indicators for China were equivalent to the Republic of Congo. So, you might think that the World Bank got it wrong, they miscoded the regulations, but no, a whole bunch of academics from 3 different institutions got together and said, no, you know what, the regulations on paper are really bad. So what makes China work? And what makes China work is really the incentives and the empowerment that local officials have, because when you're manufacturing a particular product, or you need a certain sort of regulatory apparatus which is specific to that product. You need certain public inputs which are specific to that product. And unless your local actors are incentivized to work with business and empowered to resolve their businesses, you're going to keep on running to this problem. And I just want to end with this point that, a lot of people have heard this China story and they say, this is China. But let me just assure you, it's not just China. It's actually one country after another. In fact, think of the most capitalist city anywhere in the world, New York City. The Big Apple has a mayor's office, the mayor runs for election, single point of contact, and in the mayor's office, there's a deputy mayor's office. The deputy mayor, one of the deputy mayors, has 4 offices that look into the economic sectors that drive New York. Now, New York knows that it's the financial capital of the world, but they don't rest on their laurels there. That office is trying to see how they can attract life sciences firms, how they can attract Amazon, how they can get into different areas of fintech. Even small businesses. There's a whole unit that looks at the small businesses of Manhattan. And that's where I think replicating some of the experiences we've had in the Tamil Nadus and Karnatakas, Gujarats, over to other states, and also thinking about how to get our local officials incentivized to help manufacturing in their locations is really part of the way forward. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hassan. I now invite Mr. Deepak Shetty, CEO MD of JCB India.
Dignitaries on the dais, ladies and gentlemen, it's indeed my pleasure to speak on a subject very close to my heart, manufacturing. India today is one of the fastest growing economies in the world and is poised to become a global hub for manufacturing and innovation. This aligns with the government's initiative like Make in India and Viksit Bharat, and I'm sure it will further focus on enhancing the contribution of manufacturing to our GDP to 25% from around 16-17% today. We celebrated the 10th year of Make in India initiative as announced by our Honorable Prime Minister, and the initiative has played a key role in transforming India's industrial landscape across various sectors. Various studies show that every job created in manufacturing has a multiplier effect in creating 2 or 3 jobs in the services sector. In a country like India, where employment generation is one of the key policy issues, this makes this sector a critical one to achieve inclusive growth. India needs a strategy to grow manufacturing to 12 to 14% per annum, create 100 million new manufacturing jobs in the next 15 years to realize its demographic dividend and create more depth in various sectors, including the capital goods industries. There's also a need to strengthen the country's innovation ecosystem further by the way of integrating the innovation strategy with the manufacturing one. To achieve this inclusive growth, Indian manufacturing industry will have to transition from a factor cost-driven advantage to more sustainable investment and innovation-driven model with a significant implication on factor requirements, cost structures, and productivity levels. The efforts of the Union government to boost manufacturing are visible, and we are sure that this will translate into an increase in manufacturing gross value added, GVA, in the GDP in the days to come. This is also evident from the fact that government has been making very consistent efforts to support domestic manufacturing. I'll give a small example. From around 14 QCOs in 2014 to 170 QCOs today, spanning more than 730 products, shows the government's focus on supporting domestic manufacturing, particularly in the MSME sector. Further, I know that initiatives are being taken to discourage the second-hand imports and just to ensure, again, that the domestic industry gets support. The tag of Made in India is now looked with respect on the world over. It's time that we certainly leverage this policy, this opportunity. And I would say that we should not keep on looking at X country plus one. I think independently we should look at the opportunity that we have in front of us. Our exports are on rise, be it automobile industry, commercial vehicles, or construction equipment, a sector from which I come. In fact, I'm pleased to mention that the construction equipment exports have grown by almost 3 times in last 5 years. However, manufacturing itself is changing. If we have to compete with the rest of the world, we need to be competitive, be technology-based, and operate on global quality standards, and accordingly match supply chains, which also needs to be developed. This level of manufacturing is heavily technology-driven. Modern factories and plants are increasingly adopting digital technologies such as artificial reality, virtual reality, Internet of Things, machine learning, and robotics, which we have already started adopting. And in the past, we used to talk about this. I think now it is almost given. If we really have to compete in the industrial sector, we really need to adopt Industry 4.0. And as we get into 4.0, there are already talks about 5.0 because that also brings the element of sustainability. The integration of advanced technology promises not only increased process efficiency, but also reduction in unplanned downtimes, resulting in substantial gains for the manufacturing industry. We today have a government that is committed to support manufacturing-led growth through PLI schemes. We have seen the salutary impact the PLI schemes have made. The National Infrastructure Pipeline, which is really supporting the infrastructure sector, the National Monetization Pipeline, and very importantly, the National Single Window Scheme, which I know Ma'am Dawra really had supported some year and a half back, but that's certainly something that we can leverage. India has a unique mix of all that is needed to excel in this sector: a strong will from the government, a young, educated talent pool, access to technology, and importantly, a robust domestic market as well. Sometimes we forget, like in the passenger vehicle, the Indian market is 3rd largest. The construction vehicle, again, the Indian market itself is the 3rd largest in the world. The best of the technologies need to be also implemented across. We have spoken a lot on the democratic dividend. I will give an example very close to my heart. Sometimes it is thought that in manufacturing to excel, you need a lot of years of experience. But today, technology is helping us bridge this particular gap. Our factory in Vadodara, which has 52% diversity on the shop floor, average age is 19 years. We are using the latest AR/VR technology to teach these young kids how to weld. And I can tell you that they are presently operating at a 6 Sigma level of standard. So technology adoption will certainly help bridge the gap. What we have seen in the telecom sector, I'm sure will happen on the manufacturing side. To conclude, I will leave 5 points. First, technology-led growth is a reality. The sector needs to embrace it. Second, advanced manufacturing and AI will lead to job losses. That is a myth. There will be shifting of job roles, new profiles will emerge, redistribution of human capital will take place. Third, quality will have to be given. There is no place for poor quality in the new world order. Fourth, innovation will have to be seen as an investment, not a cost.
Deepak, please
and
continue.
fifth, an unrelenting focus on skilling will have to be made. I will stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deepak. Thanks. I will now invite Mr. Nadir Godrej, Chairman, Godrej Industries, to share his remarks.
Thank you, Rakesh. Our labor laws have been such that industry couldn't do much in labor-intensive production. There was far too much obstruction. But with the stimulus of PLI, in many industries we can try. Defense exports are on the rise. In mobile phones, everyone tries. New projects are being bold. Now chips are also in our fold. And thanks to our digital stack, there are many problems we can crack. Indeed, India could succeed when knowledge was the need. Much progress we can see in pharma, chemicals, and IT. And I, for one, am very sure the chemicals growth will endure. The pandemic has accelerated future trends long awaited. E-commerce, AI, digitization are growing fast in every nation. While digitization was a trend, the curve is now on an upward bend. The pandemic has made us wise and taught us how to digitize. Even as the pandemic wanes, these learnings will be permanent gains. The post-pandemic world, for sure, will be a new normal, not as before. And these new trends can only grow. Good benefits are bound to flow. The digital world's now at our feet and surely helps us to compete. Corona disrupted supply chains and taught us of the many gains of being more self-reliant or else flexible and pliant. Single sourcing is completely out. Multiple sources is what it's about. Readjusting is a pain, but China's loss can be our gain. When on the scene Corona burst, China was disrupted first. Intermediates come from there, and we also had our share. We very quickly built our stocks and fortunately faced no blocks. Earlier, China's costs were low. Supplies from there did help us grow. Their pollution laws were lax. Their governments now on their backs. Their costs then rose. Some had to shift, and this could give us all a lift. Now, Atmanirbhar is the call. So never again will we stall just because supplies are late. Backward integration's great. Disruptions that caused China pain now prove to be India's gain. India has now clearly won the right to be China plus one. And Europe too has seen much pain. This also can be India's gain. From disrupted supply chains, there can be pains as well as gains. For exports, it's indeed a pain. For Atmanirbhar, it's a gain. Now, clever import substitution is an obvious solution, but our response must be sprightly. We can't take China's threat lightly. For all our companies, we also see a productivity increase from all kinds of digitization, which leads to cost elimination, or at least a significant reduction in marketing, supply chain, and production. But the biggest benefit that I see is enhancing our R&D. We've been good at incremental, but let's do more that's fundamental, individually or in collaboration with partnerships with every nation. But through advanced chemistry as well as through biology, and collectively we all ought to give new technology good support. New horizons are in sight. The future will be very bright. Though recent times have been tough and the going has been rough, if we are resilient and agile, we can swipe the frown and crack a smile. Brave challenges to survive and seize opportunities to thrive. Thank you.
So friends, that was the poet and Nader. I'll make sure this poem reaches the CII membership. And you're a rare poet who left 2 minutes behind, early than your scheduled time. I would now request Secretary Amardeep Bhatia ji to share his opening remarks.
Thank you. I don't think I need to, after the last two speeches, don't need to say anything. Everything has been covered, but still. This is the 10th year of Make in India, and during these 10 years, a lot of things have been done. So just to recall, we've had a lot of work which has been done on EODB, ease of doing business, the Business Reform Action Plan, which the central government, along with the states, takes up, and there's a competitive framework also which is available under that. Under that, single window systems have come up at the state level. There's a single window system at the national level. There are a lot of provisions which have been done away with. I'll not reel out the numbers. There's the decriminalization also which has happened. And not only at the national level, but in some states, even at the municipal levels. There's a lot of improvement which can be done, because in our studies also we find there's a lot of variance across the states as far as ease of doing business. Same thing done differently. We need to look at what are the best practices. We know what needs to be done, but how it needs to be done, that is getting interpreted differently and also getting implemented differently at the field level. So that's something I think is something we need to work more. And feedback from industry is always very good. Not only feedback from industry, but also that lens to really look deep into what needs to be improved is something I think which is very important, and we are a collaboration with industry in improving the ease of doing business activities which have been taken up by the government. This is what we've been requesting the industry, the chambers. I think this is something we'll continue looking at. There's a lot which has been done in the industrial infrastructure space. In fact, we were working on a presentation. There are more than 4,000 industrial parks in the country. As someone mentioned, there's a need to improve on the manner in which land is used, manner on which land is optimally used, and also reclaimed back, also unused land which is reclaimed back and reallocated. We'll have consultations on that and see what more can be done. But again, some of the states have put in place very good practices. They've also brought in land pooling systems to bring more industrial land, to make more industrial land available. They've also put in place, Tamil Nadu is doing very well, for example, in reclaiming of land. So very good practices are taking place, and this has helped actually make greater land available to industry. Logistics, Secretary Labor was earlier looking at logistics, and there's a huge lot of improvement which have taken place in logistics also. We have a very good framework which is available, which has been worked out again in collaboration with the industry, and we have reduced logistic cost, and we are aiming to reduce logistic costs through various initiatives, including improving our infrastructure, building capacities in the logistics space. We have the PLI scheme, all of you are aware of, more than 1.97 crore, lakh crore target covering 14 sectors, and we've got very good results in the sectors which have taken off. The remaining sectors also, investments are already on the ground or happening, and we expect that there also we'll have good results as far as production targets are concerned. We also have put in place a very good ecosystem for startups, and this is, it's happy to see actually that it's not only limited to a small pocket, it's spreading out. In fact, 45% of our startups are coming from tier 2 and tier 3 cities, which is very encouraging. Not only that, in each of the sectors, sector-specific interventions are being worked out so that this startup movement deepens, and there's it's very encouraging to see the response not only within our country but also from other nations which one receives with regard to startups and the collaborations which are coming up. With regard to opportunities, now there are a lot of opportunities which have been thrown up, firstly on account of the investment which are being planned, which have been done by government, and which have been planned, which are planned. In fact, if you see the Viksit Bharat 2047 targets, they are very ambitious targets. And these itself should drive a lot of investments in the private sector, whether it is on account of investment in sustainable, in meeting the sustainability goals or bringing in clean energy. Power sector, for example, I was discussing with Mr. Godrej, there's the huge demand for transformers, which is coming up because of distribution lines, transformers, which is coming up because of the new generation capacity which is being put up. So these investments in infrastructure is creating adequate domestic demand. On the export markets side and integration with the supply chains, there's also a lot of work which has been done in terms of reduction in tariffs. The weighted tariff has come down substantially and is almost at the world average level. But of course, there are pressures that this should be improved, increased by the domestic industry, which we need to look at why these requests keep coming up. Why are we not competitive enough? FTAs have been entered into. We also have, again, opportunities on account of the supply chain disruptions which happened subsequent to COVID. We also have new technologies, new materials, new sectors which are throwing up a lot of opportunities. Yesterday only I was talking about data centers. If data centers have to come in here, the amount of power which will be required, the energy which will be required for that, the innovation or the productivity effect which it will have. Somebody was telling me yesterday on this. The new materials which are being used in the footwear sector, for example, the GCCs which have come up, the textiles, the new materials which have come up. And not only that, the opportunities on account of the entire spectrum of skills that we have at the moment, the skills which you can use for assembly, to the highly skilled who can do the most complex designs. Now, keeping in mind the stability in policy, the works which have been already done under Make in India, and also the opportunities which are being thrown up. Now, industry should tell me, where is the long-term vision? Where is the scale that we should be looking at? We should be building up for, not only looking at the domestic market, but also the export markets. We should be looking at these for bringing in our investments. We should be looking at how to make our downstream industry also competitive, so that our skills will build up at the upstream level also. Products which are not manufactured at the moment for India, how do we get the technology for that? We have enabled collaborative frameworks like the ISET and all. How do we use that to get the technology which is not available at the moment? Whether we acquire it, we have joint ventures. Look at the startup and innovation ecosystem. What can be outsourced to the startups? What is it? The companies which, what are the problem statements which can be given to the startups? This is something which is extremely important. And lastly, what is needed to be part of the global value chain? We can't be looking at domestic markets only. As Honorable Prime Minister said, make in India, make for world, which is an essential part of the Atmanirbhar Bharat. I think we need to look at that and keep that in mind while looking at manufacturing in India. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhatia ji, for your special address. I would now like to invite Secretary Sumita Dawra ji to share and deliver her special address.
Very good afternoon to the esteemed panelists, esteemed audience. Very happy and privileged to be standing here before all of you. I wish I also had a poem. Yet, while I don't have a poem, I'll try to make this a little structured, and I hope I'll be able to contribute to some learning from our ministry, which can be shared. When we talk about future-ready manufacturing, there are many dimensions to it, as we already know and as we realized listening to the panelists. There's the aspect of the vision, which is already in place in terms of the Viksit Bharat at 2047. Growth is there. We are the fastest growing major economy in the world. There are the other dimensions such as opportunities. Many of the opportunities were pointed out, the global supply chains, the global value chains, the FTAs, the investments, the FDI. There are the policies of government and also both central and state government. There's the logistics aspect to manufacturing. There is also the technology aspect. We've been talking about Industry 4.0, artificial intelligence, and so on. There's the aspect of innovation, and there's the aspect of labor as well, which is why I'm here before you. Labor aspect would be with respect to the workforce, which must be skilled, and there's also the aspect of the reforms. Labor reforms, how are they impacting industry? How are they impacting manufacturing? I aspire to keep myself within these within this framework as I talk to you. Talking about labor, first of all, we have a demographic dividend, and we do know that by 2030, our working age population would be about 65% of our total population. Having said that, today, more than half of India's population is under 30 years of age, 66% under 35 years of age. We are the solution to global labor shortages. And in the next 10 years, something like 24% of the incremental workforce in the world is going to come from India. That is our strength. And that is also a strength for our domestic manufacturing. Coming to the aspect of the workforce. Today, if we look at the RBI's provisional estimates, we have something like 643 million people in the workforce, the provisional estimates. This should be about 64 crore plus people engaged in economic activity in the country, in various sectors, including manufacturing. When we look at our labor force, we get the impression that a lot of them are in the unorganized sector, which is also true. But at the same time, there is fast formalization of the workforce. They're entering social security, they are adopting social security, they're entering the social security coverage. And since 2017, in the last few years, about 7 crore Indians have entered the Provident Fund pension coverage, the EPFO as we say, and this is driven by job creation, employability of these people, and also leads to formalization of labor. Having said all this about our workforce, I would like to talk a little about Indian manufacturing, which all of you know better than me actually. But I heard a sentence said by one of the panelists, what is the Indian industry capable of? Well, the Indian industry is, of course, when we look at programs like Make in India, which have an aspiration to improve the share of manufacturing in the GDP and also getting more people, more labor employed in the manufacturing sector. When we look at the success of the production-linked incentive scheme, I heard the word resounding success from one of the panelists in terms of the production in certain sectors, the mobile manufacturing, the pharma sector, the food processing sector, and so on. We are aware of that. Apart from that, these two major schemes, when we look at the sectors, automobile manufacturing, India is one of the largest automobile producers globally. And that is on account of our skill production, our cost effectiveness, and our robust supply chains. If you look at pharmaceutical healthcare, we are the pharmacy of the world today due to our affordable, high-quality medicines. 20% of the generic medicines of the world, 60% of global vaccines come from India. We have emerged as a global hub for electronics production. We are aware of that. And this is, again, because of our competitiveness and the contribution of the labor force. In renewable energy equipment, in textile and apparel, you name it, we are largest textile garment exporter today, skilled workforce again, apart from other factors. Defense manufacturing, we heard one of the panelists talk about it. Indigenous manufacturing is becoming stronger. Government initiatives such as Atmanirbhar Bharat are promoting the self-reliance in defense production. I could name so many sectors: chemicals, petrochemicals, engineering goods. And in engineering goods, our expertise in precision engineering, large-scale production, food processing, gems and jewelry. Amazing that 90% of the world's diamonds are processed in one city. And we have skilled workforce. India is a global leader. In short, we have a very strong manufacturing base in several sectors, which is supported by Make in India, it is supported by the production-linked incentive, and very shortly it will be supported by the employment-linked incentive scheme. And that is one scheme where I really need to talk to industry today. The employment-linked incentive scheme was announced in the budget 24-25. It will give hiring and employment incentives to employees and employers. There will be 3 parts to the employment-linked incentive scheme, and the additional cost of employing additional workforce will be offset for years that will be defined. If you look at the budget, Part A and Part C will support for 2 years, 4 years respectively, and Part B for 4 years. Basically, we will be incentivizing the employer, particularly in the manufacturing sector, towards the contribution of the EPFO, the Employees Provident Fund contributions for a period of 4 years. And then there's another, the Part C, which I've been alluding to, that is only for the employers, where additional cost per employee will be offset. This is a scheme you must look at more deeply, and in the interests of time, I'm not going too much into it, but this is an important scheme which will be supporting manufacturing, it will be supporting first-timers, it will be supporting employability of labor and formalization of the labor force, leading towards a more productive manufacturing base in the country. Apart from this, several other things are happening. We are aware of the global capability centers, where a lot of innovation is happening, and we have become the hub of global capability centers, the global competence centers in the world today. More than 1,700 global competence centers are there in India. They employ more than 3 million Indians, basically in engineering and technology. A lot of artificial intelligence, support to innovation worldwide is happening. Recently, I went to see the Volvo GCC in Bengaluru. It's amazing the way we are supporting innovation in the world. That's the kind of capability and expertise our labor, our young people have here, right here in India. And that is what supports domestic manufacturing, and that's what's supporting Make in India, and that's the way to go forward. Apart from this, I'd like to briefly touch on labor reforms. We have heard about the labor codes, the 29 labor laws, which lead to complexity, multiplicity of labor laws, of compliances. As we are aware, these have been codified into 4 labor codes, and the Parliament has passed them in 2019, 2020, simplifying the ease of doing business, bringing about ease of doing business, reducing compliances, and leading to decriminalization of a lot of the provisions. And single registration, single licensing, single returns, these are some of the things which we are already putting in place even before the codes are notified. So briefly, to give you an overview, I spoke about our demographic dividend, the strength of our workforce. I spoke about our manufacturing strengths and how the two synergize. I spoke about certain other strengths, such as the GCCs, as an example before you all, apart from the startup culture and many other things which are happening in India, showcasing our innovation. I spoke about labor reforms. I spoke about the employment-linked incentive scheme, which I do hope the industry will be looking at and will be using to make themselves more competitive. At the very end, I'd like to say that our manufacturing competence is built on our cost efficiency, our skilled workforce, government support, the policies. We have key industries which are proving themselves on the global level, and going forward, continued investment in infrastructure, sustainability, skill development will further enhance our global positioning. And what is important is that the industry leverages the new technologies, the policies, and the practices in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Secretary Dawra ji, for your insightful remarks. Due to paucity of time, and I'm cognizant of the next session, which has to start at 1:15, I'm just going to go in the reverse order of 2 or 3 questions. So if I may, ma'am, we'll start with you. You are looking after the most critical, one of the most critical departments and the Ministry for Labor, which really impacts the industry as a whole. And when we see the quick commerce industry, gross merchandise value, going up by 280% to over 3 billion. One thing is, how can we look at gig economy becoming part of formal employment? And a quick would be on, do you see any fear of losses with AI coming in?
Okay. The first question is a little shorter answer. The gig and platform workers are a growing part of the country's employment scenario, and we are aware that something like almost 1 crore workers are already there in the platform economy and the gig economy, and it's going to grow further. By 2030, we expect more than 3 crore workers in the gig and platform economy. The labor code on social security has outlined social security benefits for them, and we are putting together a scheme for the gig and platform economy workers, because there is no traditional employer-employee relationship defined for the gig and platform workers, but we really need to bring social security coverage for them so that they can be more productive and they can support the country's economy, the e-commerce, the manufacturing sector, service sector more effectively. So that's about the gig and platform workers. We are very much, cognizant of that requirement. Coming to AI disrupting the employment scenario, we do have a task force which is studying that along with industry and also the labor unions. Our sense is that AI is something which probably should be adding to jobs. As we also see in the automobile sector, for example, we do have robots which have been brought in, but then the same labor force has been redeployed to an area where training to use those robots or to maintain that machinery is happening. So, and I think there are experts who are also indicating that AI need not necessarily disrupt the employment scenario in a negative manner. So we do look forward to the positive impact of AI on the economy. The economy is expected to grow, and also on employment. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you rightly mentioned we need to see AI as a very productive tool. And of course, make our youth ready for that. And that is where I talked about the industry, academia, they need to sit together and ensure that we are looking at future of jobs. Let me turn to Secretary Bhatia. When we talk of the Atmanirbhar Bharat mission, when we talk of Prime Minister Modi's vision of Viksit Bharat, one thing which keeps bothering the industry is the ease of doing business and high cost of doing business in India. And while with great fanfare, the single windows are launched by every state government, and there's a push from your ministry as well, on the ground, things don't move the way it should. So what are your views? And my suggestion is that I think this is something where you must bring all the state governments on one platform and the same wavelength. Because ultimately it's India which is going to benefit, it's Indian youth which is going to benefit.
So as I mentioned, we have a framework in place. We have the BRAP framework, the Business Reform Action Plan, which the central government works very closely with the state governments and the industry. So there are around 280 or so reform actions which are already identified and part of that BRAP, which has been worked out in collaboration with the industry. Now, most of the action lies with the states. Most of the reforms which have to be done are at the state level. So we do an annual assessment on where each of the states stands as far as the identified reforms are concerned, and then we share it with all the states to know how they stand compared with the other states. We also have a bucket of good practices in the salient reforms which we share with each other. Now, what is happening is seeing one state doing something good, other states are also picking up and also replicating sometimes, and sometimes even improving on that. So you've seen this happening in Gujarat, you've seen this happening in Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra. Now, Odisha is having a very good ease of doing business single window system. Telangana is having a good single window system. There's a very single window compliance framework at the industrial parks level which has been set up in Andhra Pradesh. So things are happening. Now, there are obviously gaps, and there can be much more which can be done at the state level. We are in constant collaboration. We hold regular workshops also with them. In case any further suggestions are there in improving those single window systems or deepening those reforms in any specific state, the industry is most welcome to come up with us, and we'll have collaboratively then sit with the states as well as the industry and see what more can be done.
Sure, we at CII will come and have a chat with you, but I think one suggestion which I want to give here is, when we talk of single window and in a time-bound manner, the applications need to be approved. My suggestion is, if it can be within the first 7 days, any queries or any objections, that's a window which whoever is heading the single window has. Generally, it is towards the last week of the expiry period, and therefore it sort of becomes open permanent, almost on permanent basis, and the delays start to happen. But we'll come and have a chat with you. I
come
would
with a solution also, possible solutions. So how do we put in place mechanisms?
I think one is, rather than the annual assessment, I think this should be an ongoing engagement with states on a monthly basis, because ultimately India needs to benefit from all that. And industry will be very happy to sit with you. CII will come and we'll have a chat. What can be looked into in a different way. If I may apologize to my fellow panelists for skipping the questions. And I know we are standing in between lunch, so everyone is really eager to go. I'm very happy to share with you that the Trade Enabling Standards Information Portal, TESIP, developed by the Confederation of Indian Industry along with the Institute of Quality. It's a comprehensive one-stop online window designed to address the standards challenges related to promote trade. So you will find the entire information, what is required from the domestic viewpoint or any country where you want to go and do business. All that information will be available and sits on this portal. It provides a holistic repository of domestic, international, relevant private standards applicable to key sectors and export markets. I must compliment CII and the Institute of Quality for having put together this framework and the portal, which will be hugely beneficial to the industry at large and more importantly the SMEs. If I may request Secretary Dawra and Secretary Bhatia to launch the portal, please.
Welcome to the Trade Enabling Standards Information Portal, your gateway to comprehensive information on standards and regulatory requirements for industry to promote trade and India's quality infrastructure framework. Developed by the Confederation of Indian Industry, this online platform is designed to support businesses, industries, and other stakeholders in navigating the complex world of standards, technical regulations, and conformity assessments